Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to another fun-filled episode, an early fun-filled episode, a holiday special fun-filled episode of the CryptoManiacs podcast. Task is getting an early start on the day. He needs to white knuckle some driving, I'm guessing. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I'm heading to my dad's for Christmas, and I'm just unsure. The Friday before, I want to make sure I'm there before typical rush hour, because I have a feeling people are going to bolt from work and it'll just be chaos. So get out a little early and try to beat the crowds down there.
The wonderful, wonderful world of holiday traffic.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I
yeah.
like I was telling you before we went on air. I was dealing with that last night, and it was pretty rough, but nothing like I'm sure you guys down there in the beautiful Sunshine State have to deal with. So
Well, and it makes it worse. It's not real bad by me, but I'm heading to South Florida, which is just a zoo in the best of circumstances. So
there you go. You ready to dive into some questions from the amazing Maniacs community, sir?
yeah, I mean, what are we going to talk about today? Are we going to talk about the price of Bitcoin? I know
Price.
that's what the
Dude,
topic.
always.
So wait. You said you were out last night doing some holiday stuff. So does that mean you didn't do your Bollinger Band homework on Bitcoin?
I didn't do my Bollinger Band
John,
homework. Forgive me.
uh,
There was no technical analysis done last night. There was no studying of the analysis of the RSI lines or whatever that one is called. No, there was none of that. But I'm here to talk about the price of Hive, just because I'm going to throw something against the wall and see what sticks.
Okay.
Sounds
Well,
good.
hey, you're running the show, Captain. So
Sure.
whatever you think is best.
No, well, we try. Here we go. 2023 is right around the corner. That was the name of the post because we only got next week is the last Q&A session of the year. So hope you guys have got your
I guess it'll be the 31st.
30th.
So yeah,
30th is next
30th,
Friday.
right? Yeah.
Mm.
So what do we got? We got 8 more days left in the year.
Crazy. It flew by. So you guys have been asking some amazing questions all year, but let's see what you guys came up with this week. DevPress is up. What is your opinion on the exchanges in the near future? Do you think if all exchanges fail, does that lead to decentralized systems? Well, I know what I said this week. We did that podcast with Dan, and Dan reminded me of that Chris Rock bit, and I did an entire post on Chris Rock and explaining how the exchanges will never really care about Hive because they can't make any money off of Hive. The traditional exchanges, that is. So I'm all for seeing decentralized systems come into play. Will that happen? Will it become as big as Binance? I don't know. But, the less I see of Binance and Huobi and you take your favorite big exchange and it gets fired to the moon, I'm totally happy with that. But I don't know. What do you think's the future of centralized exchanges?
Well, centralized exchanges are needed because it's the on-ramp and off-ramp to fiat. So if all centralized exchanges go away, then your ability to convert to and from fiat is going to be pretty much ended. So there will always be centralized exchanges. My view is the big shift will take place in crypto to crypto transactions, and if you only use a Coinbase or a Binance or any of these other exchanges for when you're dealing with fiat, and then once you're in the crypto ecosystem, you're going from Bitcoin to Hive or Bitcoin to LTC or Bitcoin to Ethereum or whatever you're doing. You're doing that either on through decentralized exchanges, through liquidity pools, through some of the other DeFi services that we potentially could offer. That to me would be a major boom. And that probably, I don't know if that's the future overall. That's the future of Hive because
Mm,
HBD in the United States is probably going to be banned from exchanges next year because it is an algorithmic stablecoin. So US based exchanges, which basically right now is Coinbase, that's it. And they don't carry it anyway. So that won't be on there. So you'll have to get that in a decentralized world or through some of the other centralized exchanges outside the US. But it's like they don't carry Hive, and at this point, I don't think it much matters.
yeah.
Starkers made a comment on one of the CTT posts videos a number of weeks back. As long as you have one token that's the on ramp, I mean, I use LTC. So if I
Yeah.
can go from fiat to LTC and then get into the ecosystem using LTC, I don't give a crap. And ultimately, that's what we need to look at is setting up liquidity pools where your LTC or your BTC to Hive or to HBD, one of the two. And once you have that, then you can shoot in your LTC or BTC or Ethereum or whatever you want to use from anywhere. And once you get to Hive, you know, worse is you have to bridge it back to Hive. You use the internal exchange, and now you're an HBD, or you go into a Hive derivative, HBD derivative, swap it out, and then bridge back your HBD or whatever you want to do. So
Mm,
this is why this infrastructure that's being built, in my opinion, by Leo Finance, by Speak Network, by Disregard Fiat, and maybe we'll start to see something in 2023 tied to half. This is why that's so important because it gets us into the crypto world, which if you take all that volume from the exchanges, you're basically suffocating the exchanges and making them a lot smaller.
mm. There you go. Good answer. And speaking of HBD, our next question from Tokura Taro 22. What he's scratching, or she, I'm not sure, is scratching their head about is how stable is HBD? I always like to say lovingly, HBD is a stable-ish coin. And I think that benefits us. And yeah, it's got to do with volume and all that stuff. But like, I don't know about you, Tass, but if HBD goes down to 92 cents, I'm not sitting there like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. If USDT or USDC went down to 92 cents, the crypto market would self implode. So we, I think, have a lot more flexibility with HBD. I would never call it a stable coin because it's never exactly at a dollar. It does sometimes touch a dollar, but it's a stable-ish coin. It hovers around that to me, and I think that's kind of a blessing for HBD because again, I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I don't lose my mind if it goes down to 92 cents or something. I keep stacking it, and it eventually pumps back up. Or it sells off, whatever way it needs to go, and we live happily ever after. What about you?
Well, I think first off, when you look at that 92 cents HBD, that's misleading because that's what people read on CoinGecko and
Right,
they think
right.
there's a great deal of volatility. And basically, CoinGecko reads Bittrex, which half the time the wallets are locked and closed, and they got no volume anyway. And then, help me out, John. Who's the Korean exchange off the top of my head?
Huobi and
Not
Upbit,
not
Upbit.
Mobi. Upit.
Yeah,
It's Upit's the only one carrying it,
right.
and
Yeah.
that's pretty much to anybody outside Korea a closed exchange. So I always look at the internal exchange, and I agree with you, John. I mean, when the price of HBD dips, it does. I don't fret out. I don't worry about it. I don't
Right.
care. First off, I know it's not being attacked. I mean, it's too small to attack, so nobody's going out and attacking HBD. Um, you have USDC, US Tether. You have, I mean, you had UST. those ended up being attacked. USDD could be attacked with Tron on Tron. And so what we have is we have the HBD stabilizer, which for the size of what we have is perfectly acceptable because I think there's $240,000 a day it's getting that it can trade back and forth. And, our trade volume's nowhere near that. So, um, it's stable-ish. It's not an exact peg. Uh, but I look at it from the perspective, if anybody's read my writings, to me, if we are going to make HBD a powerhouse, we have to build the value of HBD, not the peg, not the backing, because pegs always break. Pegs never hold, never have held throughout history. They'll always break. So what you have to do is you have to create and look at how does a currency have value. And this is where I get into infrastructure, sophistication, funding, collateralization, all that different stuff that you utilize it for, payment systems, and that's what will give HBD value. And also, if you look at the BHBD pool and you look at the price of that on CoinGecko, you'll see 92 cents HBD, but then you look at the PHBD and the BHBD pools, and they'll drop, but they're 97, 98. So they even remain tighter. And, it just all comes down to arbitrage. It comes down to derivatives. It comes down to payment systems, bonding. All this stuff feeds into the value of a coin. And HBD, quite honestly, is the only one I see that has that potential because USDC, as an example, they only care about USDC. It's going to be up to other people to incorporate USDC into that. We have this right in our own ecosystem. So, I know Speak Network is building out some things that ultimately will incorporate HBD. Ragnarok, as Dan said, is incorporating HBD and basically having a lock fund where all the HBD that goes in, only thing that they utilize is the interest payouts. So that's the big difference. You don't see that where somebody who's involved in the USDC community like Dan building something like that, but it happens on Hive. So I think ultimately HBD will be better served once the entire community realizes this is our payment token. This is the token that should be focused upon as payments. And then we build everything else out from there.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're going to start using HBD for a lot of the things that we're building out. Just because it's again a stable-ish coin, and if you want to do commerce with crypto, trying to get someone to buy and sell using Bitcoin to part with their Bitcoin is like pulling teeth. But a peg-ish token makes a lot of sense.
So. Well, what you bring up, John, is a very valid point, and it's a point that's lost on everybody when they talk about cryptocurrency. When you talk about the non-stable coins, if you want value in your cryptocurrency, you want hodlers because you don't want people just dumping it. Obviously, if they just dump it, what happens to the token price or the coin price? It crashes. But when you have hodlers, there's two things that happen. The first thing is it affects the liquidity because there's not as much out there because a certain percentage of the people are hodling. And they don't want to part with it. Why would I part with to buy your product, John? You're charging me $30 for a product here. You want me to send you, we'll just say BTC. So I send you $30 worth of BTC when I believe BTC is going to be 5 times the price of where it is now a year and a half from now. So now that $30 product actually costs me $170. Why would I do that? That makes no sense, number one. Number two, why would you take it if your $30 product, and let's say it's a physical product and you're operating on a 10% profit margin, well, you're going away for this weekend for the holidays. You're going to be out in the great boonies. You're getting away from the internet. No cell phone coverage. You are just taking some time for Django. And I go buy your product, but in those 3 or 4 days you're gone, the price of Bitcoin drops 20%, which it can happen. And the more that's locked up, the greater the volatility because you have less float. And then all of a sudden you come back and you say, shit, I just sold that product to Taskmaster at a
Yeah.
loss. I lost money. And that's where like you said, the stable-ish coin, at least with HBD, if I send you 30 HBD, okay, you can look up and you look at CoinGecko and it's like, damn, it's 92 cents. But then you look at BHBD and it's like, well, it's 98 cents or 97 cents. Then you go on the internal exchange and you say, oh crap, it's 99 cents. And then you always have the option. You could take those 30 HBD and convert them to Hive and get $30 worth of Hive because one HBD is convertible to Hive. So, there's a lot of different areas that you have that ability, which when you start to use a non-stable-ish coin, you're incorporating into your business model a lot more volatility than you really want to take. It's tough enough being an entrepreneur, being a merchant, being a business owner, selling stuff without adding volatility, currency volatility. I mean, most people are not adept at dealing with that unless you've dealt, with an international company where you had to deal with yen to dollar conversions on your financials and crap like that. But just
Right.
using this simple example, you don't want to sell me a $30 product and then 3 days later you come back and you realize, oh shit, I just get sold it actually for $20 and I lost $5. And by the way, I had a great weekend and I sold 100,000 of these and I just lost $500,000. It's
Yeah.
that's the problem with looking at that. So I think a major transformation will be when cryptocurrency understands your currency is your stable coins. Your other cryptocurrency that we talk are digital assets, whether they're NFTs or fungible tokens, they're digital assets. And that's why I call the other tokens like Hive. Hive is a value capture token. It reflects the value of the entire Hive ecosystem. Now we know the markets misprice it and they're lunatics, but at least it should capture the value. And over
uh,
time, as we build more out and we have more projects, we have more users, we have more options, we have views, we have Ragnarok, we have Splinterlands, we have CyberX, we have microblogging, we have long form content, we have all this stuff that
mhm.
makes Hive more valuable, in my opinion.
Mm. Good point. Great point. There we go. My Path to Fire is up, and he's in the audience too. He's probably enjoying the fact that we're a couple of hours earlier than normal today. But he wants to know: do you have any good tips for storing your keys safely? And then he's got the little Mission Impossible self destruct messages. Um,
Well, I mean, I can only
that's what
say
you
for
do.
me, I mean, my keys, I use a keychain. Uh, and then I
Mhm.
have a USB with my keys on it. And then I have
Yep.
also taken and I did not do the laminate, but I have actually
Mm,
taken that and I have physically written it out. I didn't print it out. I physically wrote out the keys on a couple different pieces of paper and I have them in different areas, a couple different places. Uh, of that's how I store them. And to have that paper backup, I think is important. And I would suggest also getting it in a couple different locations.
right.
If you have a safe deposit box, that's one thing. If you have, a cousin or somebody you have, your parents, stick a copy of that at your parents' place. So that way, in case your place catches on fire, your keys are safe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been doing for years. The first thing I ever did was print out my keys and physically laminate them. So I've got multiple copies. I've got my wife has a set. I have a set, but you just mentioned sending them to my mom's house. That might be a really good idea, as well. So multiple places that they're stored, but I do have all of my because I have dozens of accounts on Hive. So it is all on most of it's on USB. Nothing's on my computer. It's all on USB. So it's definitely cold storage. But the printing and laminating is something I've been doing since day one. And that's actually the paper wallet thing is something I learned when I first got into Bitcoin. If you remember back in the day when you used to go to bitcoin.com and bitcoin.org, That's actually what they suggested. They suggested getting your keys on pieces of paper, and having it safely offline. So that kind of stuck with me. This is 10 years ago too. This is what the advice was back in the
I
day.
still have most of my Bitcoin in paper wallet, actually. I never moved it out. I don't have any way to get it out because my USB doesn't deal with paper wallets. I guess what do you got to get a
Mhm.
tracer or something? I think to access paper wallets. But
Well, I have no Bitcoin anymore, so there you go.
no, it's
So if anyone steals my Bitcoin, they're in for a shock. I think I have like 0.5% of a Bitcoin or something.
that's like rating my checking account. Good luck on that
Mm,
one.
yeah, yeah. I'm definitely all in on a certain crypto. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Hive. Thank you for the question, though. My Path to Fire. Hope that helps because it's really important, especially with all the craziness about not your keys, not your crypto. Really good self custody and a little bit of
Which,
personal responsibility.
if I can add to that, John,
Mhm.
that also adds to the incredible aspect of Hive, because if
Right.
you think about it, if I was able to get John's key right now and get into his Django account, what am I going to do? I can drain his liquid Hive and his liquid HBD. That's it. Yeah, I could use and maybe post some crap under his account, but in terms of financial, since and I haven't looked at his account, but I presume most of his Hive is powered up, so it's a
All of it.
13-week power down,
Yep.
and I would presume most of his HBD, if he has any, is in savings,
All
earning
of it.
20%.
Yep.
So that's a 3-day window. So again, unless he's out in the tundra there on a 4-day camping trip, I really am not going to get anything because if
Uh,
I initiate a power down,
right.
he's going to notice that. He's going to say,
I'll take
wait a
it.
second, I didn't do this. And he knows he got hacked. And if he goes in and his HBD is showing 0, he knows somebody initiated,
Right.
taking it out. And he's in that 3 days because if you undeposit your HBD, it shows 0. It just disappears. Then it
Right.
shows up as liquid 3 days later, um, or 3.5, whatever it is. So these are preventative measures, and then of course, then John can simply turn around and just go and change all his keys instantly.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely one of the better cryptos out there on a security level, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm very biased, so it's funny. You got to take everything we say with a grain of salt because we have goggles on and blinders. But when you think about it, just like you said, Task, you have 3 days to get that out. You have 13 weeks to stop a power down,
Yeah,
and if your recovery account is set up properly, you're good to go. So there's you know that's a good blog post down the road, recovery accounts and how important they are. So there you go. Good question though, my path to fire. Appreciate it. Freedom McKeer 123 says, keep scratching my head about how and when Hive will make me the first millionaire in my family. Wondering when the bear market run in cryptocurrency this period, will Hive ever hit at least $5 uh, as to boost his or her
yeah,
little
yeah.
efforts
The
here on
bear
Earth?
market will end February 7th, 2023. Hive will hit
Nice.
$5 June 29th, 2023.
I thought it was
That
June 28th. Is it June
uh
28th?
Well, it depends. What are you using? What time zone are you thinking in? Are you thinking
Right,
in
right,
our time zone, or are you thinking
right.
in the east? You must be thinking of the east. I'm in the western time zone here with
Right,
my calculation.
right.
So you're
Yeah.
you're using that Greenwich Mean Time again.
I'll check my Bollinger Bands and RSI lines right
Okay.
now, and I'll get back to
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Um,
Your
freedom,
your 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 187-day Bollinger Band.
right? 187. Yeah, I have no idea. Freedom, and I'm pretty sure Task doesn't have any idea either. Does Hive have the potential of going to $5? Sure, because we've seen it. If you're in the legacy blockchain, we've seen it as high as $8. We've seen this. This is possible. Will it happen again? Who knows?
Yes.
Who knows?
Yes. It
Who knows?
it's if you simply look, I've been mulling around the idea of scarce digital real estate. And you understand Hive is a proof of access. It's not proof of access, it's an access token. So you need Hive to engage in the blockchain. That sums it all up. The question is, will people want to quote Dan on Tuesday, a censorship resistant blockchain? Does that have value to people? If you believe it will, and look around, there isn't a lot out there that does that. What will that value be in the future? Because keep in mind, the more activity on chain,
Right.
the more expensive the resource credits get, which means more are going to be required. And ultimately, it becomes, how do you get resource credits? Somebody's got to power up the Hive. Well, how do you
Right.
power up Hive? You got to go out and get it. So, in demand increases as the utility, and this is no different than what happened on Ethereum, just that translates in higher transaction fees. With Hive, it actually translates into a higher um, value of the of the Hive coin, because people needed to transact. So that's
Right.
where we have the value system captured in the value of Hive through the access. It's not lost just in transaction fees, which you pay and are gone.
Yeah. We do have blinders on, but we're all very bullish on Hive. You know, there you go. Guess who is up next with a question?
I don't know.
Jimmy. Jimmy. We love Jimmy. Everyone loves Jimmy. Jimmy is up and he says, would you consider views to be a potential key Hive onboarding tool once it evolves? And Task is a raving fan, so maybe he would have some insight. Um, I will have
Repeat that
my
question.
insight.
I was dealing with a little coffee error here. What was the question exactly?
Yeah, he want to know: would you consider views to be a potential key Hive onboarding tool once it evolves?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. I think it might be one of the best. And I base mine, and I'll throw this out there, John, and I'll let you counter it if you feel the need, based upon you know more about this actually than I do. But just looking at Stumble Upon, and doing some research, Jimmy, on that. At one point, the last number, and this was actually pretty early on, so they may have exceeded it, but I saw 25 million users at one point. Views is as good as Stumble Upon was when I was using it. I don't remember, John, 2013, maybe 2012, 2011,
Right.
whenever the hell it was. And I think Views is as good as Stumble Upon was. Now, the difference being Stumble Upon had much broader range in terms of the content because it dealt with the whole internet. Right now, Views is very isolated, but we know at some point, and I'm not trying to give any insight here, but at some point, we know we don't know the date, but it will extend to the Genesis block on Hive. So we will have a lot more content in Views.
Right.
Where it goes after that, I don't know the plans. I'm not privy to that, but there may be ways that perhaps we can incorporate, or the team can incorporate, where certain people can start throwing up content from outside a Hive. Maybe that's part of, if you're a super duper viewer, you can start saying, okay, I want my ESPN stuff or my NBC stuff or my whatever in there. So there's plenty of ways to go about it. But Stumble Upon was a very popular. I mean, 25 million, let's be honest, in social media is nothing, but 25 million is a lot of people. So it was a very popular app. And I think it will be a popular app again. And then, just talking about my consistent talking points here over the last couple months. If the team does decide to go the route of, let's make this into the everything app, Jimmy, I think that's a major home run, because on Hive, Views bring something to the table nobody else has. And I mean, Blaine would have to answer this, but my presumption is it's not very easy to duplicate. What Blaine set up is not easy to throw together. So,
Mm.
it's one thing to throw up a front end that can do long form blogging. That's a lot easier, I think, than building a machine learning engine for Views, and
Mm.
then honing it and contouring it the way Blaine has done, and then the scaling and all this other stuff. I think that's very, very specific in terms of the development. And so I think Views has incredible potential because it's bringing content discovery, it's bringing content creation, it's a differentiator from everything else that's out there. And Views could easily incorporate whatever's at the base level of Hive at the blockchain level, wallet systems, microblogging, long form blogging, if you want to add that, the internal exchange, any of this stuff that's at the base layer of Hive can be incorporated into any application. That I think is a lot easier for Views to do than anybody else to do what Views has done. And so I think it's
Right.
certainly a way that, you know, marketed right, once it's to the point where it's ready for marketing, I think it could bring a lot of people in the Hive. And it may require, this may be another one of those apps. Dan talked about this Tuesday that requires light accounts. Because does somebody really want a Hive account, um, just to view content and to press the next button? Maybe they don't. And I don't know how that would feed into the machine learning engine because you need some identifier. But maybe it gets set up where, hey, you just use an email and an address, and you get the views feature, the content discovery, but you don't get the other stuff if that's incorporated in the commenting, the upvoting on the Hive post till you sign in with a Hive account. I don't know if that's
Right.
possible. I would presume it would be in some way, shape, or form. But I think it has some of the best potential we've seen, Jimmy.
Well, obviously, I'm very biased, so I'm gonna say yes to everything. Yeah, I mean, we got plans. I mean, obviously, we want to open it up. The timeline is to open it up to the Genesis block. Then we want to potentially look at ways for authors that say are on Medium to have a one-click ability to create their Medium post into a Hive post, and get it onto the blockchain. The potential, just like you said about, you can do everything except for voting and commenting on blogs until you sign in with your Hive account. That's all on the table. I think the big thing for us is to hammer out this machine learning, the content discovery side of things. This is why we launched beta, because we want
Mhm.
more and more people using it. So the way to speed this up and to get this going is to get more and more people using Views consistently. And we've got plans. I mean, just a little insider trading information. We will be doing a promo here, a viewing promo, probably either the first week of the new year or very, very soon. We're going to be rewarding people for using the front end and commenting in the front end, and we're going to be able to see how many people have been, and we're going to have leaderboards and the whole nine. Blaine is on vacation right now in the middle of Yellowstone, so he's looking at Old Faithful. I asked him to take pictures of it. He took pictures of it. I didn't believe him he was actually going until he showed the pictures of Old Faithful, which he did in minus 25 weather. So it literally took off, and I think it froze in the air halfway. So there might be a problem there for your national parks task. But anyways, I digress. Yeah, lots of stuff coming for Views. The beta is going pretty well. Lots of exciting news, gossip, scandal. 400 people on Hive have signed in to Views, which is great. We'd like to see 4,000, but 400 is a good start, and we're continuing to build it. And that's our game plan, Jimmy, is to have it as a massive onboarding tool for Hive.
Let me ask you a question, John.
Yes, sir.
And leaving the business aspect out of it. As I said, stumble upon 25 million people. That's a lot of people, but in the social media world, in the internet world, it's nothing. And it was nothing, 10 years ago. What do you think, if you even looked at this, but what do you think the problem was with stumble upon? Why didn't they get 100, 125, 250, 500 million users? Because it was a very interesting app. It was a very versatile app. It was a great content discovery tool. You and I really liked it, but it never really seemed to take off. What do you think? Do you have an opinion as to why it didn't?
Yeah, a couple. One, the most obvious thing to me is that they didn't monetize it properly. Um, They never had premium memberships. Their advertising rates were astronomical. It was just never monetized properly. So without the money coming in, they pretty much, I'm pretty sure they lost interest in it, and it was costing them a lot of money to keep running. That's the business side. The second thing to me is that if you remember, the majority of it, and this is going back 10 years, the majority of the content was not mobile friendly. And they did have a
Yeah.
mobile app, but the mobile app was awful compared to the desktop application. And that was the transition from the desktop to more mobile about 10 years ago. And all of
Yeah.
those sites were not created for a mobile experience. We made sure from day one, all of the content you see on Views looks great mobile, looks great desktop. That was critical. And it's very easy with Hive because of the way that Hive is just text based, and the pictures just, we need to make sure the pictures fit perfectly. But I think that was probably the biggest reason for StumbleUpon, not the monetary and the business side of it, but the fact that back then, 10 years ago, mobile was just becoming a thing, and they did not make their app cater to the mobile environment. So all of the content looked great on a desktop. You saw the infographics big and bold, and it was beautiful, but they didn't show up properly in their app. And they had an app, but it was awful compared to the desktop experience. So that's what I would say was the two major
Well, would
reasons.
you also say, because, and I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe it was a little longer, but we went through a period of time and the iPhone came out around 2007. So I think it was around 2010, smartphones really started taking off. Android came
Mm,
around 2009. So we're probably talking in that time period. The websites themselves were not developed for mobile.
right.
So
Exactly.
could it be a timing thing that we're stumble upon? Even if they made their app a lot better, they were
Yeah.
dealing with content that wasn't really designed for mobile, and so they were just like 10 years too early. I mean, could we make that claim?
I absolutely. That's exactly what I think. I think that it was it stumbled upon as a fan, and that it's funny because that entire model, the traffic exchange, let's say model, to me, is literally ahead of its time. I think that it was
What's the traffic exchange model for the people like me who don't know? What are you talking about?
traffic exchanges were very popular, basically for the past 20 years in affiliate marketing, online marketing. One of the biggest things back in the day was, it equaled, if you got traffic to your websites or offers, you would make money. So the hardest thing in the world, 15 to 20 years ago, was getting website traffic to your offers and to your websites. So the traditional way was the safe list and viral mailers. We see that the reimagination of it through listeners. That was basically a viral mailer, but we turned it into a content discovery platform. And traffic exchanges was, I look at your website, you look at mine. That's
Oh,
it. So and people don't understand that StumbleUpon is technically a traffic exchange, because when you set up your account at StumbleUpon, you were able to put URLs in that you wanted to get people to stumble upon. So
mhm.
there was no exchange rate, there was no exchange ratio, excuse me. So it wasn't like view 10 stumbles and you'll get one stumble, which the traditional traffic exchanges had. View two sites and you'll get one, in reverse. But you did have the ability to put and the more stumbles you made, the more potential you had to get stumbles to the URLs you put in. I think you could put 3 URLs into your stumble upon account back then. So these models to me were brilliant, but the problem was that they were too broad. Stumble Upon knocked it out of the park because the more you used it, the more the content became catered to you, which is what we want to do with Views. We want you to start viewing things, and every single site and blog post and content that you view just gets better and better and better and better. That's where I think this model comes into play, because it's not that the model didn't work. It worked perfectly. You looked at a site, you got someone to look at your website. It was this cooperative, and it worked really, really well. The problem is that it wasn't broad. It was too broad. It wasn't narrow focused, and the categories were missing. So Stumble Upon got around that with content discovery, and we're hoping Views does the same thing.
Yeah, but one difference, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I am, and you plan on adding this, there is no trade-off, to use that term, like you were saying with StumbleUpon. I sign up with my Hive account. The only way I'm not putting in any
Right.
URLs to say, okay, let's throw this in the circuit and let's get these things stumbling through or
Right.
viewing through.
Right.
So my chance of being found is based upon my activity on Hive. So the more activity I've done in the last 7 days, the more that it will be seen. And ultimately, if once it goes back to the Genesis block, obviously, then we're talking about all the posts, over the time. So
Exactly.
there is the incentive to stay active on your most recent posts the last 7 days. But
Right.
in the future, there is going to be the incentive to think long term and say, okay, if I put up a post a day, every day for 365 days over the next 5 years, that's what, 1,825 posts that will be cycling through. And then, of course, the more tagging, the more keywording, the more all of that stuff is, better the chance that I get seen by those people who are interested in basket weaving.
Exactly.
Uh, so that really is, when you think about it, it's the short-term incentive with the long-term incentive for your content to be seen by more people who are using this project. And it's not, well, I just put in 3 URLs
Right.
and hope everybody starts to see my blog posts or come to my site. I got to put it on Hive. I got to put it out there. And then the other thing that I want to get your insight in on this, John. There's been a reputation, if you will, of Hive of shit posts.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of that out there. I mean, there's also, if you use views, you also realize there's a lot of high quality content. But do you think this will motivate people to write better content or to try and put forth more effort with their posting?
You can hope so, right? I mean, but this is the thing. It's like you could lead the horse to water. I mean, how many months have you and I stood on these cameras, and say, "Hey, this is the formula. Show up every day, put in the work."
Mhm.
So you would hope that it kicks people in the butt to keep creating good stuff and to get better. I think that's kind of the entrepreneurial journey, though. You start at a certain point, and if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to stay at that point. You want to grow. You want to learn new skills. You want to get better at what you're doing. So I'm crossing fingers that it does. And the best thing, again, being on Hive, is that people get supported throughout this journey. Trying to create content on YouTube, you've got to get 10,000 hours and 1,000 followers before you're monetized. And there's no real like support. They'll say, oh, we support small streamers and small YouTube creators. But do they really? I mean, no, they make their money off of Mr. Beast. That's where they make their money off of.
Mhm.
Small creators are a nuisance to them. Like they don't care about the little guy.
Yeah.
Hive, the community cares for each other. So you can
Well,
grow
it's
as an
interesting. I
individual.
don't know if you read my tweet this morning, but I sent a tweet out similar to that. It's like, because I'm approaching, and I'll do a video on this probably the end of next week once I hit it. But I'm hitting a personal 3-speak milestone, if you will.
Yes, I saw
And
that.
and so what I said is, I'm approaching this milestone. I've never uploaded one video to YouTube, but it's
Mhm.
amazing to me to see these people on YouTube complain about how to get monetized when you have the possibility on 3Speak to be monetized from day one.
Day one. Yeah.
If you get a slight upvote, you're monetized. Okay, it may only be worth, zero point zero 0.01 Hive or zero point zero 0.02 Hive or whatever. You're
Right.
not going to retire off of it, but you're monetized. Like you said, you got to get 1,000 followers and whatever a number of thousands of hours of views from those thousand of followers before you're even monetized on YouTube. And then I've never heard anybody say what the hell they get when they start getting monetized. Is their first monetization 10 cents? Or
Oh,
is
it's
it three
awful. Yeah.
three
Yeah.
thousand dollars? I don't know, but I hypothesize it's probably 10 cents.
Yeah.
So you get 1,000 followers on Hive, and you get, uh, you know, I don't even know how you quantify it, but you get 1,000 videos up on Hive, let's say, or 500 videos up on Hive on 3Speak. Come on, you're gonna be making, at least I would guess a couple $100 because hell, Eddie's running around with the Three Speak account, upvoting content. And if he sees somebody consistently on there month in, month out, he's probably going to start to give them a few upvotes.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll add up.
That was always my thing about Three Speak and the Hive experience was that you have people that will literally upvote you the more they see you, which hopefully views can help. I mean, going back to the views thing, is that the more you're creating, the more your tags are to the specific communities and what people like, they're going to start seeing you more. And the more people that see you, the more you can simply get upvotes. So.
Well, I wrote a post about this 2 weeks ago, and it's something interesting. And again, it's not a game changer for anyone. But what I've done is I will come across a post, and even if it's not something that's really in my realm of normal viewing, let's say somebody posts some pictures and a short blurb about some type of travel they did. Here they go to this church in Sicily, or they go and do a hiking trail up in the Adirondacks, whatever. This is stuff that's not going to appear on Leo Finance. I'm not going to typically see it. If it appears on Leo Finance, it's tag spamming. I'm certainly not going to upvote it. But what I've done is on tags, I actually downvote. I will down thumb the post sometimes because it's like, okay, it's photography. I don't really care about that. But I'll give the post a slight upvote. I'll give 10%, 5%, something like that. And it's like my Hive value, it's like 7 cents, 9 cents, something like that. Not earth changing, but I'll do that with posts that have like nothing to them and no upvotes, or they may have upvotes, but the people voting, it's not monetary value. So they have 3 cents, I'll make it 9 or 10 cents. Figuring maybe that just will incentivize somebody that, hey, keep going. There's people who see you. So I've done that hundreds and hundreds of times. Is that going to change anything? Probably not. But like you said, if you get 4,000 people doing that, all of a sudden you're spreading these upvotes around.
Absolutely. I'm upvoting a lot more content now because of views. It's not as much. I mean, I'm only doing a 10% upvote, but just a little I see you, and that inspires people. You would be blown away. I don't think people, especially whales, I don't know if they understand not necessarily and it's not fair to say whales, I'm saying everyone on Hive, how much a vote is to the creator, not how much it's worth. Just seeing that you are being recognized is so powerful. And that's where Hive just absolutely shines. And I want to see more of it on views. But
yeah, as I shared Tuesday, I've been doing some stuff with my old posts, going back to my first post. And as I said to you and Dan, God, I was a shit poster in my early days. But don't worry, I got shit rewards. I mean, I got plenty of goose eggs in my early posts, and a lot of 8 cents and 3 cents and stuff like that. But you're right. We forget, or we don't understand how, maybe a 0.25 or a 0.5 Hive reward really excites people, because it's like, yeah, everybody looks and says, I want to make like $1,500 on a post. Well, that's not realistic. But all of a sudden, if you're starting out, and it's like, if you have the mindset John and I did, where it's like, John and I both came to the mindset, regardless of the rewards, we were going to do this. I mean, we didn't know each other at the time, but it seems we both had the same mindset coming in. And I just said, this is cool. I'm going to keep doing it. I don't know how I'm going to be successful here, but I'm just going to keep trying till I get there. And I still, looking back, I had to think about this, but you're right. There were times when getting like an upvote from somebody who had an upvote worth like 1 Hive was incredible. It's like, oh, I got like 1.25 Hive, not rewards. I mean, that's what it was. But actually at that point it was 0.75 or 75%. So it's like I made 0.85 Hive on that post, and that's something, even though it was only worth like 65 cents or something, it motivates you.
Yep. Absolutely. Great question though, Jimmy, and that was an extended answer. Tokenized societies up. What one industry could you say greatly benefit from tokenization? To me, the absolute no-brainer right in front of me is be like the music industry. To me, I think music could be NFT'd, could be tokenized, fan tokens and the whole nine. Sports stuff like that. Entertainment industry in general. To me, that's like kind of the as soon as I think of that question, I don't know what would you say? What are some of the
Everything,
industries you'd like to see?
everything. You know, I mean, we see it. We're
Everything.
doing it on Hive with social media. There's the first thing. Finance. There's another thing. Anything with intellectual property. So music, art, video, movies, all of that is right in line. Obviously, real estate people have talked about that for years. And I'm not saying this is all easy. There's regulations, there's laws. I mean, real estate has to be a nightmare to try to work through, but it's a great concept, and real estate could benefit from tokenization because it's not liquid, and then you could get partial ownership or fractional ownership. Um, it's I've written in the past. Maybe I'll do another post about if we do get robo taxis, how about tokenizing them? Where we all have the opportunity of buying tokens in robo taxis in 7 different nations and 10 different cities in each nation. You can own you know 5 tokens in each and get a little piece of the revenue in all those robo taxis. I mean, really, you're dealing with something that is wide open to innovation. We're only limited by what we can think about and create. Gaming, there's another one. I mean, gaming's kind of been tokenized forever, but it
Right.
hasn't been. It's been in game, but now you start tokenizing in game assets, and tokens where they can be traded and on different exchanges, and you actually own the stuff outside the game. I mean, that's incredible. And then what Dan was saying, an NFT that applies to a game, and then other people build 6 or 7 games around it that you can use the same NFTs. I mean, this is all just revolutionary stuff. So, I mean,
Hmm.
one industry, I think if you want to say what's getting changed the quickest, social media.
Right. Yep. I agree. Yeah, it's what attracted me to the legacy blockchain when I read that white paper and they said tokenize the internet. It just made sense to me. So yeah.
Mhm.
And finally, we got NFT BBG with the final question of the week. What is your take on the Scent tribe transforming into questions and answer? It reminds me of Riverio. I have no idea about the Scent tribe. I'm pretty ignorant to it. Just I've never really looked. I've heard of it, but I do not follow what they're doing. Do you know anything about this? The
Well, if I
question.
recall, and I might be mistaken on this, the Cent tribe was economics, and now you're switching to a Riverio type model. If they are, I don't know. This is the first I've heard about it, but okay, let's say they're doing that, which is great. But the challenge is, and this is a challenge for Riverio, as interesting as the project is. This goes back to what Jimmy asked about views. What's to prevent Leo Finance, Peak D, Views? What's to prevent them from incorporating this into their application?
Right.
Now, obviously, if you're talking about a Views, if you're talking about a Peak D, they're more general in nature. If you start talking about a CTP or a Leo Finance, you get a little bit more specific in nature. So I would presume, unless they wanted to do something contrary to what the community focus is, which Leo Finance is, well, they're kind of half and half on that with Threads. But you would presume, Mike, a Leo Finance, if they incorporated this question and answer, which I wouldn't think would be that difficult to build into a Leo Finance, it would focus on cryptocurrency and finance and business and investing, which is fine. You could get very specific. It's in line with their community. But this goes back to like Warren Buffett and moats. And it's like, if Cent is doing this, okay, great. It's terrific that there's all these options where you can access the blockchain and engage with this feature.
Mm-hmm.
But why are you going to stand out, especially if a Cal, if a Blaine, if any of these other project developers all of a sudden hear what I'm saying right now and say, shit, yeah, we can build that in. Not a big deal. Okay, we'll put it on the roadmap and we'll get to it in February. And then all of a sudden one day they introduce this into their app. This is where I go back to my belief is it's the everything app. Who is going to take this concept and mentally start running with it with their projects? Because the idea of me using 18 different apps on Hive, I use Peak D to post my general content stuff. I use Leo Finance to post my finance stuff. I use Leo Finance for my threads. I use Reverio for my or Sent for my question and answer. I use this to I use my wallet blog high blog or whatever it is to do my internal exchange transactions. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this all. I mean, does this make sense as I'm explaining this?
Mm-hmm.
No, you want to go to one thing or maybe two things. I mean, okay, maybe Leo Finance doesn't cover everything. Maybe it still is specific in its community focus. So then I have a views or then I have a PT that incorporates all this, the general stuff. So I think it's going to come down to one or two apps, and the apps that figure that out and start incorporating all of this stuff in that, you know, if I'm on views and all of a sudden I get a DM from John. He says, huh, the Koreans are at it again. And I'm sitting there pressing next and pressing next and pressing next on views. And I look and it's like all of a sudden there's a pump in the price of Hive. Wouldn't it be great if I'm in views and I just click right over to some aspect of views and I'm in the internal exchange and I can swap my liquid Hive for some HBD saying, oh, good, I just made 40%. That's what I'm talking about because you're already right there. You're using it. It's like, why do I need to change? It's like views right now. I don't need to leave views to go like we did at first. I don't need to go to the blog post to actually leave a comment and upvote it. I can do it right in views. So if I want to comment, it's right there. I leave a comment. If I want to upvote it and give it some Hive, give it some whatever my vote has with it, I can do it right there. And so I think, you know, I don't know about the Scent project other than it was a tribe and they were initially going to focus on economics, if I'm thinking of even the right project. But okay, great. What are they? They're trying to copy Reverio. Well, Reverio's not setting things on fire, and I commend Reverio. I think it's a great app. I don't use it, but I think it's a great idea. But the idea can be incorporated into any application, and I wouldn't be surprised if other applications start adopting that, just like ultimately I think other applications will start incorporating microblogging. Leo Finance figured out, why wouldn't other apps do it? I mean, you have long form content with 8 different apps. Why wouldn't you have microblogging with 8 different apps? And, you know, if microblogging takes off on Hive, it's not because people are going to leave Peak D and go to the microblogging app and start microblogging. It's because they're in Peak D, they're in views, they're in Leo Finance, they're in whatever. And then they want to send out a microblog. It's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I think that's where the projects that see the holistic nature of this, you know, and that's why I was very happy to see views quickly flip to content distribution and incorporate Twitter, incorporate Dbuzz, incorporate Threads. It may seem like something insignificant, but that's part of the holistic view that, hey, we're looking much bigger. And it's one of the reasons, going back to Jimmy's question, why I'm optimistic on views.
Well, I am too, because it's awesome sauce. Dude, we did it. We got through another episode, and you got time now to go deal with traffic. Go play Frogger. Remember Frogger? Yeah. No?
No,
You
I
don't remember
kind of,
Frogger?
it rings a bell.
Yeah, you're the frog. You had to get across the traffic, and you didn't want to
Yeah,
get
I
hit by
think,
the
and you
truck.
got splatted if you didn't make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
There was also one. What was the one? There was one with logs, like moving in a river, and you had to jump.
It's Pitfall.
Pitfall.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm showing my age now with all the Atari games from back in the day. Uh, you know, beautiful, beautiful graphics on those. You were a stick man when your arm was like 4 bits. It was great. Dude, have a great Christmas. Everyone listening in, have a fantastic holiday season. You guys be good to each other. We will see you with Starkers, crossing our fingers, on the 27th. That's next Tuesday.
I think he last contact I had, he worked it out. His timing's okay, so I'm pretty sure we will have Starkers on Tuesday.
Perfect. There you go, guys. Have a fantastic weekend and holiday, and we'll see you guys next week. Toodles.